Hey there, it's Jared Hamilton with the Hamilton Group at Cherry Creek Mortgage. Welcome to another edition of Java with Jared. Once again, happy Friday. Hope everybody is doing good and staying warm. Boy, it was a pretty chilly morning. Well, it's also kind of chilly for rates here this week. Rates finished the week slightly worse than where they ended last week. Now, the big news of the week was really the Dow Jones Industrial Average hitting 20,000 for the first time ever, and it's been real close over the last, about 2-3 weeks, and it finally broke up above that level. And that has created a whole lot of optimism in equities, which put some pressure on interest rates. Now, we had a lot of economic data that was released into the market here, some of it being weak, which would typically be good for interest rates, and actually were. So it kind of quelled a little bit of the so much enthusiasm over the stock market. And again, when the stock market does well, typically we see interest rates do suffer a bit. So because we've now broken above that 20,000 mark, it makes it easier for potentially the stock market to climb if it stays above that level. And that could put some further pressure on interest rates. But here was the economic data that was released into the market. First of all, we did see some news from the housing front. We did see existing home sales come in. That showed a decline of about 2.8% for December. Now remember, though, November was the best number in about 10 years. So even though this declined about 2.8%, and actually November's number was really revised higher, it's still a really great number, so it's not showing that there's a lot of weakness into the market. The other thing that just to keep in mind in December, it does show that things were still pretty good, even despite when rates started climbing. Right after the election, we did see rates jump. Now, the full rate hike is not really going to be in effect for these December numbers because a lot of people were already under contract and maybe locked prior to interest rates going up, or they didn't see the full effect of the rate increase, or they were just, almost in the housing process and they didn't want to really turn back. So it'll be interesting to see how these numbers equate into January and February's numbers with these higher interest rates. And remember, existing home sales is about 90% of the overall market. We did also see the FHFA, Federal Housing and Finance Authority, index come out, and that showed an increase of about 0.5%. We did see new home sales come in, and that showed a decline of almost 10%. But remember, that's only about 10% of the market. The average price of a new home is quite a bit higher, and also, just foot traffic and stuff in December, that may be just affected it a little bit more. We also did see durable goods come in weaker than expected, and GDP was actually a pretty big miss. Expectations were for over 2%. We saw GDP, expectations were for about 2.2%. GDP for the fourth quarter, first reading came in at about 1.9%. Now, that's not 1.9% for the quarter. They average it out. So really what that equates to is that for the whole year, GDP on average was about 1.6% when we factor in the other three quarters. So GDP is lower than what the Federal Reserve really wants to see. They want to see an increase of over 2%. So we're seeing the economic data that came in this week actually kind of weak, but there's just so much optimism over what might happen in the future, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average being up over the 20,000 mark. That's just, providing a lot of good optimism. So we probably will see rates maybe continue to suffer a little bit because of that optimism over what could be happening over the months to come. But you just never know. We're going to see a lot of economic data that's released in the market next week. Rates are still at a phenomenal level, and despite Dow at 20,000, rates kind of held their own. It wasn't much of a decrease. Rates didn't get, hammered because of it. So that's good. Just lost a little ground. We're up against some support lines. So if we can break through them, and maybe if the Dow comes back down below that 20,000 mark, we could see a little bit of a benefit. But rates are still phenomenal, and we'll keep you informed with what's going on next week. Thanks for joining me with Java with Jared, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.